Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're back with today's question. This one says, Vinny, what's the best induction for working with senior clients? I worked with a fellow recently. He didn't have the ability to clasp his hands, so I couldn't do suggestibility tests. He was really having trouble focusing and going into trance. What's the easiest induction to use in this situation? So I think this is a really great question. And where I work with folks and what I teach hypnotists to do is quite different in this regard. So from a more traditional standpoint, I would say you can use a PMR in that situation. You could pace and lead the client. I think that would be pretty good. It's non-invasive. There's not a lot of movement there. So that's pretty cool. But ultimately, I think the easiest induction by far is whatever that client's unconscious mind presents to you, and you just kind of catch or utilize it. So here's an example. Recently, I was doing a teaching demo with one of my students, and it was pretty clear that there was an internal experience happening. There's all kinds of indicators. And after a few minutes, I kind of took over the session just for a second. I really want to demonstrate this for my student. I said, just got some feedback. So what's happening now? I asked the client this, and he said something along the lines of, it's like there's something just turning in my mind. Right. So that became the induction, if you want to call it that. And I just literally said something along the lines of, yeah, that's right, it's turning in your mind, just turning. Who knows what it might turn into? Kind of went down that road, right? And I find this very fascinating because, he just kind of zoned out at the appropriate level he needed to solve the problem. So I did not plan that going into the session. That's what the unconscious mind presented when we asked for feedback. So here's the thing. It kind of reminds me of a discussion I saw recently in a Facebook group. Folks were advocating the use of scripts as a tremendous technique for learning hypnotic language. And then there was always a contingent of folks that were like, well, that's not good. I don't really have an opinion on the matter. I don't use any of this stuff. I don't use pre-talks, inductions. So I do find what people think to be very interesting about it. And if we were to take that premise, though, that a script is an effective way to learn hypnotic language, I think there's probably some truth to that. At the same time, I think we can ask ourselves, what could possibly be more hypnotic than just using what that client's unconscious mind presents to you? Could be language. I didn't have a turning script, right? Could be movement. It could be anything, right? So the ability to just work in that way frees you up, and there's an ease to it because it's no longer about, well, this demographic needs this type of work versus that one. We could just utilize whatever shows up for that individual. And so this becomes very powerful. So I hope I was able to sort of articulate that. It's much easier to show than to explain, I would say. So anyways, if you have more follow-up questions, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a message, etc. Yep. Until then, take care, everybody.